Recording in progress. Call this meeting reconvened to regular session at 7:08 p.m. My apologies for the delay. And could we get a roll call, please?
Trustee Inger.
Present.
Here.
Trustee Slavudin.
Here.
Vice President Lee.
Here.
President Tejada.
Here. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
Okay. And we get a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's see, approval of minutes.
So moved
Of both minutes.
for both May 16th and May 17th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There is nothing to report out of closed session. Communications. Have a board report. We'll start with Ms. Garrett.
Okay, I would like to say it's an honor to celebrate Pride Month this month, and alongside all my LGBTQ brothers and sisters, I love you all. I celebrate you all each and every day, but this month is always special. It was wonderful to go to go to Thornton graduation. As always, I do appreciate all the students and all the hard work that the teachers and staff put on, getting the students to and through school. On a side note, I don't want to talk too much about it, but I am very disheartened by all the things that are happening on the news the last couple of weeks. I can barely actually watch the news because every time I turn it on, it reminds me of my own children and, that they're able to feel safe while they're getting an education, and they should feel safe, and we as a country should do more to protect them and work on policy. So I would just say that. Other than that, thank you to all the teachers and staff who put in all the work during the school year, and hope you all have a restful and wonderful summer vacation.
Can I remind us to speak loudly and into the microphone?
I am
please?
sorry.
No,
I will
it
do
is
that
all
in the
good.
future.
Reminding at the
Thank you
beginning.
for the reminder. I
very
forgot.
much.
And Mr. Ochapinti?
Yeah, so it was good to be at a couple graduations last week, a couple weeks ago, and it's always something, I think, obviously it's a milestone and it's something to reflect on, to see our students to walk a stage in person and be able to celebrate that moment with their families and community, especially at this point in the pandemic is, I think, something we're all grateful for and something that we should all celebrate. So to that effect, happy to see a lot of my students and all of our students graduate in the past couple weeks has been really good, including Summit Shasta, whose graduation is this Thursday. So looking forward to closing out the last of the graduations in our district, and yes, close year one back on campus on that note. To that effect, too, I think, yes, with Pride Month and of course, with everything in the news, as fellow colleagues mentioned, it's one thing, to get through a pandemic for our students and families in our community. It's another thing to get back on campus and experience school shootings and, like we've seen in many instances, too often and tragically, including in Uvalde, Texas. These are things that obviously should not become routine. It should not become normalized. We should not become desensitized to these things. We know that our students are resilient, but we also know that our students who also know this, we should remind them that they shouldn't get used to this being normal, and they know that. But it takes us reminding each other that something has to change. And so, in thinking about a lot of the pressures that our students and families deal with, this is one more thing that we can find a solution to. I do believe that as school districts and school boards, we have a responsibility in elevating this discussion, being vocal about it. When we talk about restorative justice and the kind of things that keep our students safe and healthy, we should be thinking about, the kind of things that we can do to prevent this kind of tragedy, even when many of the shooters are young men and committing crimes that are not only unspeakable, but sometimes considered unavoidable, but they are completely preventable. And I believe that. I believe that with things like ethnic studies, things like restorative justice, and just teaching compassion in our schools is a fundamental element that I think coming back to campuses and teaching the value of social emotional learning has an unlimited impact on our students. And I think the more we talk about it, the less we'll be talking about these incidents. But we need to continue talking about it, and that conversation is not over. And so I do hope that here, in our community and on Election Day, no less, that this next few months we have a more realistic and sobering conversation that many have had in our country and around the world in addressing violence, not just domestic violence, but war and violence around the world. We know that guns don't solve problems. People solve problems, and they start in our hearts. And so to that effect, I know a lot of our students have been protesting and speaking up to raise awareness and to fight, not just these tragedies, but these forms of oppression in our communities. And there is a march, of course, nationwide on Friday. It's Friday, June 11th, March for Our Lives. Many of the youth from Parkland in Florida, who were part of a much larger movement and help amplify that, are helping sponsor and encourage people to join protests and speak up this Friday, in addition to the many issues that our nation is at grips with right now. And so I would encourage our community to be a part of that, and of course to take that in stride as we celebrate the end of a school year and get ready for another one. And to that effect, I want to mention one last thing, is that it was good to see some of our students celebrating the life of Derek Gaines this Sunday in South San Francisco. He was a former student. He was a student in South San Francisco Unified School District who tragically was shot by police, by a school resource officer, no less, at the age of 15. This year's his 10th anniversary. He would have been 25. And I think his life obviously matters, and understanding that gun violence is not just unique to people who buy guns in illicit ways or just get a hold of them. It's also endemic to policing in our country and the culture of guns in our country, and that's something that we need to think about when thinking about our values, and that our youth and our lives are more valuable than our guns and the way that guns are used in our country, even by our police officers today. That effect? That's all I have for now.
So, yeah, and I know a lot of our two of our board members already spoke about the trying times, and when times are like this outside, I tend to really dig into what I know I can change, and that's why I'm very happy that I'm a board member. I can just make an impact in the community in a small way, but it is one thing. And so in that vein, I was very, very honored to be a part of the graduations of the Therapeutic Day School, which is my favorite graduation, and I have never missed that graduation in my entire time as a board member for the district. At the Adult Transition School, their graduation, and then I rounded my graduation season at Terra Nova. So it was fantastic just to see, just to always put a face on the work that we do, the end goal, and to see, proud families, proud students, and all our faculty and staff together to be able to celebrate the accomplishment of getting through this year, because this was a tough year. And again, graduations are really hard to pull off, big or small, so I just want to say thank you to all the staff that worked on graduations, setting them up, and doing everything they did to make sure that our students and the families just, had their special day. And then for our, our big four comprehensive schools, those are a lot of work. So, another additional shout out to our maintenance and facility staff, because, it's an event. It's, breaking down and putting up a huge event. So I heard myself in that. Like, so weird to hear yourself back in yourself. So, just thank you so much for all of the work that they've done. I was so proud to represent the board at all of those graduations. And, while things are hard, those small achievements, they may seem small, but those achievements are so huge for some of the families. That is the first time they have seen, their child succeed at that level. So to be a part of that is big. And I know at the adult transition graduation, to have current students tell the story of the students that are graduating. I'm sitting next to Tony and I'm a mess, like just crying to hear a student say, I'm really gonna miss this student. I'm so proud of them, but they have been my friend this whole time and they really like to sing and I love to hear their songs. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, so those are the things I lean into when society around me is challenging. So thank you.
Yeah, just like my colleagues have said, the graduations were all special. I was fortunate to be with Ms. Archipinti actually at both Westmore and Oceana. And one of the things I always forget is actually how many students I actually do know, because I always tend to forget which of the younger siblings of my children's friends are at which schools. And so it was fun to see them actually walk the stage and to congratulate them and to speak to their families afterwards. Always a special time. Saturday, I attended the Progress Pride Flag raising in Pacific at the Community Center, which was really a great event and the kickoff of Pacifica's first Pride Parade. So that was actually really just a very special event on Saturday morning, and the celebrations that went on through the city that day, especially in the Sharp Park area, was pretty fantastic. A lot of really fun activities throughout the city that day. And I continue to be heartened to hear the stories of our staff as they move in to 705 Serramonte, and just realizing that not only are they moving into a home, but we were really blessed to be able to provide this opportunity for some really dramatic life change for so many people. And it's just really special just to hear the different types of stories, how this is going to benefit them personally in these next few years, how we've seen families be reunited. There are stories that I'm hearing that I never would have expected when we first embarked on this journey. And so I'm just really grateful again to have been a part of this endeavor that we've accomplished out there. I look forward to seeing, how this really starts to impact student achievement, because now people are sticking around, and we'll be able to do some things that we've always wanted to do but couldn't because we were so focused on hiring new staff. So I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of retention data we have, which I think is going to probably blow our minds, quite frankly. And it's also just wonderful to hear, how many more people are going to be moving in over the summer. How many people have moved in already as of the 1st, and how many more will be coming through. So, again, thanks to our team. You've been congratulated many, many times, and I just can't thank you enough for all the hard work, and you know who you are, and some of you are sitting in this room.
I just want to reiterate what my colleagues have said about thanking all of our staff and teachers, especially our facilities staff, for getting all these graduations together. It's really hard, all at the same time, and we appreciate you. And I know that all the families appreciate you as well. So my daughter graduated from Jefferson. I was able to give her her diploma. And and she had told me in 2015, when I gave her brother his diploma, in 2015, she said, "You need to run for re-election because you're going to give me my diploma in 2022. And so, of course, I was able to do that. And sadly, her father couldn't be there because he passed away 6 weeks before. But I want to thank the entire Jefferson community for helping our family, for helping my daughter get through this difficult year, because it was not a sudden passing. Just the flexibility, the love and care that she was given from every level. I mean, even campus security would check in on her, because I went to high school with Naomi, and they would just check in on her. How are you doing? So, this has been a tough year in many, many ways, but I'm so grateful for this community. I know they've done a lot for my daughter, which means I know they've done a huge load for everyone, all the students in this district. at the same level, I'm sure. So with that, I am turning this over to Ms. Presta.
Thank you. So I too attended, I wish that I could go to every graduation, honestly. I was able to attend Oceana and Jefferson and Thornton and Therapeutic Day School and Adult Transition. So it really is, we've been saying it, but it's just such a wonderful culminating activity at the end of the year to celebrate with the students and to celebrate with their families. So it was great. Many celebrations, retirements, end of the year parties. So all of that's been happening the last couple of weeks. And we now are sort of feeling a little bit of okay, now let's sort of take stock. Corinne's shaking her head no. Now let's take stock. Let's get things done and start looking towards next year. So I'm really happy that since the last board meeting, we were able to get all of our Progress Pride flags flown so we could celebrate. Happy Pride, everyone. Thank you to Austin for getting everything ordered and up in record time. So thank you, and thank you to the custodial staff for getting those up. I sort of joked about slowing down, but it's really not a joke to me. I think that it's very important that we all kind of slow down to renew ourselves a little bit. The work is always here. We work all summer. People say, oh, it's summer break. Aren't you chilling? And I'm like, no, we work all year. But really, we do need to take a breath when we have the opportunity to take a breath and to renew ourselves. So I encourage everybody to do that. And I will be doing that myself, try my best. I am very excited that we're going to be doing some leadership training. So the executive cabinet and I are going to be working with Toby Scruggs-Hussein, doing Brene Brown Dare to Lead training this coming week. So we're going to be doing a few days of an intensive, and then in the fall, all of our administrators are going to do the training as well. I'm very excited. I think that it's really going to impact our district quite a bit. And I'm really excited that people are willing to do it, and I think it's going to be great. And then finally, I'm just really excited. We have one new administrator tonight that you will be meeting, but we've offered and they have accepted a couple of some more new administrators for the coming year. And this is a year when I talk with my colleagues in other school districts, and you can listen to the news. People are leaving education, right? It's been a really challenging year. And the volume of people who have applied hasn't been as much as we've seen in the past. And yet, somehow, the caliber of people that we are hiring is really high. And so I'm very, very, very happy and proud, because there's a reason why they're applying and finding us, and that's because we're doing some great things. So I'm really excited for the renewal that we need to do this summer, and then really I'm looking forward to the fall. And that is it for me.
Okay, thank you. For the AFT Local 1481 report? None?
I think they're skipping this week.
Okay. And do we have a COVID-19 response update? All right.
I'm going to take my mask off so that
Okay.
this can actually be heard. Good evening. According to the San Mateo County Department of Health, San Mateo County and the Bay Area region are seeing an increase in COVID-19 cases. The County Department of Health is recommending being current with vaccinations and boosters, getting tested if you have symptoms, wearing high-quality masks like N95 or KN95s, and increasing indoor ventilation, such as opening windows and doors and avoiding indoor spaces with poor ventilation. The transmission level within the county is considered medium, with a case rate of 430.1 new cases per 100,000 people. This number is likely to be underreported due to the high number of self-testing that is currently happening. The county is not considering any mask mandates at this time. JUHSD is mirroring the county, and we are seeing a similar trend. In January, we had 443 positive cases reported. In February, we had 103 positive cases reported. In March, we had a total of 18 cases reported. In April, we had 185 positive cases. In May, we had 176 cases, and as of today, we have 8 positive cases reported to date for June. Due to changes within Cal OSHA, staff members who are ready to return to work after a positive COVID case will be able to self-test at home and report their negative test results via the JUHSD website's self-reporting form. Ongoing surveillance testing is still in place and is happening at the district office on Mondays, at Jefferson High on Tuesdays, and at Terra Nova High on Wednesdays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at each location. We have a supply of over 10,000 at-home rapid tests and have been making them available to staff and students as needed. Rapid tests will be sent home for the July 4th weekend and will be available also for pickup during registration in August for testing prior to the start of the 2022-23 school year. As this is my final report to the board, I would like to take a moment to thank the board and the JUHSD community at large for being welcoming and supportive. It's been a true pleasure to work at the district, and I will treasure the relationships I've developed during my tenure. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. And now we're on to the consent agenda.
Move to approve consent.
Actually, one item I would like to pull from consent.
And that is?
Item 12D3.
I didn't hear.
Sorry.
Westmore High School change orders. 12D3.
12B3.
Oh, D. Okay.
Move to approve consent with that change.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have any public comment?
No cards at this time.
Okay. Now we're on to our discussion items, starting with the public hearing on the, I'm sorry. Oh, yes. Okay. So I would like to introduce our new VP for Oceana High School.
Let's go to the-
And that is Mikhail Novik.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to work with the staff and the students and the families of Oceana. I'm really excited and I'm looking forward to a great year. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're excited. Welcome.
Not used to this. Okay, so now we're on to the public hearing for the Local Control and Accountability Plan for 2022-2023. Ms. Baca. So,
Oh. Technology.
I swear to God, every time I hear that clicking, it just reminds me of the dog.
You want to do like 125 or?
You have to download it. It's not downloaded.
If he downloads it, opens it.
Not downloaded, so. It's just. You have to use the downloaded version. Right, that's why, yep. Do you want to open it in Acrobat, or do you want to just make it bigger? There we go. All right, now you can do that.
Da-da-da.
Presentation we've been waiting for all year,
Mhm.
LCAP. So tonight, I will be reviewing the highlights of the 22-23 Local Control and Accountability Plan. Just as a reminder of what the LCAP is, it is a 3-year plan with goals, actions, and services and expenditures to support our unduplicated students, but it needs to be updated every year. This is my 9th, I think. And every single year, there's been changes. So on the right-hand side are the highlighted ones are the changes for this year's template. And it just gets more and more interesting and complicated. This is the budget overview for parents, and as you can see, there is a total revenue of about $80 million, and about $58 million of that is from the LCFF funds. And from that, about $3,099,000 are generated by our duplicated students, which are students learning English, foster youth, and low-income students. In this process, we've done a lot of engaging our educational partners. So the District Advisory Committee met twice this year. Also, we consulted with the District English Language Advisory Committee. We had our board study with AFT present there. We consulted several times with SELPA, and we actually also met with through CPAC, Special Education Parent Advisory Committee, to ask for their feedback on the LCAP. And also this year, Dr. Robinson and I went to each of the school sites and sat there all day and waited for our staff members to come and give us feedback on what they like, what they would like to see. And so what they had suggested was put in place into the LCAP. And a lot of the comments that I received was really thank you with everything that we are doing, because I think we are heading the right direction. Here are the LCAP goals. The first 3 goals are broad goals. So they are the same from last year. So the first 3 are about college and career readiness. The second one is about safety and connectedness. The third one is about equity and inclusion. Goals 4, 5, and 6 is our focus goals. So goals 4 and 5 is about students learning English on their college and career readiness, and also the intake process for our newcomer students. We also highlighted a focus goal for our students with IEP. And so we are looking, this is a change from last year. So last year, it was just the graduation rate that was put in goal 6, but because of differentiated assistance, we were asked to look at the dashboard indicator for the academic performance, which is the Smarter Balance assessment scores for math and ELA, and also the graduation rate. And the 7th goal is the maintenance goals that talks about facilities, instructional materials, communication, and student voice. This is just for your reference. This is a summary of the LCAP. I got major compliment today from one of the people that we interviewed, and said, you know, this is the most helpful thing that he had seen so far, and more districts should be using it. So it's nice to hear. And then I'm just going to go over the summary of the changes in the goals and actions. So We will no longer be using MDTP as the benchmark assessment. We will be using the exam for like teacher tests if they want to, but as a benchmark assessment, we will be using Renaissance Math because we are using Renaissance ELA, and reporting with this system has been much easier than the MDTP. We're also focusing on universal design for learning so that our students have opportunity and access to grade level content standards. And so we are adding 4 additional instructional coaching sections to support that work. There will also be a district-wide refresh of projectors. I think this projector is a little better because if you notice, these are the warrior colors.
Yes.
I listened to your
Noticed.
feedback, and so hopefully it shows the warrior colors. AB 469 requires that all of our 12th grade students who did not opt out fill out and complete the FAFSA, or the California Dream Act. So we're putting some resources there in order to meet this requirement from the state of California. We will also we will be partnering with the Boys and Girls Club for the Future Grads program, where they provide our students with mentors and guidance, not only while they're in high school, but also after high school. So it's that to and through support that they will be providing for our students. And actually, this year there's a first cohort of students that were recruited, and students agreed to be a part of this. There's about 29 students from Jefferson and Westmore High School that are this week attending Menlo College and getting workshops, academic workshops, and they will be getting support, throughout their 4 years and after that. We will also be providing a section for teacher on special assignment to support the ELD program at Oceana and Terra Nova. We will be adding a smaller remote independent study, but will be housed at Thornton High School. And also, last year's plan or action involved Thornton High School getting out of the comprehensive support and improvement eligibility. Because they got out of that compliance and accountability, I still wanted to call out supporting Thornton High School, and one of its challenges is engaging students back and absences in attendance. So our goal, I met with the team, is to create a plan on how to engage students to Thornton High School. Goal 2 is about we're going to embed healthy relationships, consent, communication, and support in the curriculum for all students. So this was done this year at Westmore High School. We had an organization present to the 12th grade students, and the curriculum was very, very well done. And so we want to integrate this in all of the grade levels for the following year at all of the school sites. Also, we will be hiring, or we have hired, mental health counselors to provide educational related mental health services. In the past, these services were provided by interns, and the challenge had been finding interns, and also the supervision for interns had been really, really challenging. And so we decided that we would hire our own district employees to provide the service so that there is continuity of support for our students. Ms. Ventura, along with Ms. Ambrose, are developing the ERMS process and procedures for JUHSD. They've started working last week, and they will continue to do so. We are also going to provide training for administrators on Fresh Lifelines Youth. And this is to support our administrators on knowing what the laws and policies are around the youth impacted by the juvenile system. So we will be partnering with them and getting training from them. And also, one thing that we've added in the metrics is conferencing with students and parents regarding attendance, because attendance has been a challenge due to COVID and other things, but we want to make sure that we have the processes and that we meet with parents and students to engage students. More. Goal 3, we have hired a full-time teacher on special assignment for ethnic studies. Next board meeting, she will be here to present an update on the ethnic studies curriculum. We'll also be following district protocols and addressing students' chosen name, gender, and pronoun. For goal 4, we have reassigned a school counselor caseload so that there is a dedicated counselor to address the needs of our newcomer students and make them feel welcome and supported. Goal 5, we will be partnering with the adult school to develop a bridge program for students who come to this country at the age of about 16 or older with very little grades or transcripts, and so that get their diploma through either GED and also help them partner with Skyline College. And most of them actually also do work. And so we want to be able to accommodate that so that they can, work and get their diplomas at the same time. And finally, there will be monthly meetings and check-ins to monitor these supports and services. Last 2 goals is adding the Smarter Balanced Summative Assessment metrics for students with IEP because of differentiated assistance. And goal 7, we did add metrics on school cleanliness, so there will be walkthroughs that happen twice a semester with administrators and our directors of maintenance, and operations. We will also be providing coaching for our administrators. We will be adopting new math textbooks, and also the election of our Student Advisory Council will be done by the student body. And a couple more slides for the increase improved services. So the plan has lots and lots of items for the ELD program. We're providing site funds for our school sites to decide on how to best support the needs of their unduplicated students. But in addition, we've added 3 items where the items are principally directed to create positive impact for the unduplicated students. So it's not necessarily directly affecting our unduplicated students, but most of their work will impact the students that was mentioned. So that's for instructional coaching, wellness counselors, and our vice principals too, which in the past they were the dean of students. So the projected LCFF supplemental funds is $3,099,072. I think I said that right. But the budgeted item for the LCAP is above and beyond that, and it's $3,911,568. And those are all of their resources. So the CDE template has over 100 pages of lots and lots of fun stuff, and then the summary, and then the supplement to the annual update. And that's the highlight of the LCAP.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up to the board if you have any questions or comments. Okay, Ms. Salahuddin.
So we don't have to go into it now, but I can follow up with you later. But just getting more of an idea of how we're going to tackle the FAFSA for all 12th graders. And I know, like I read up on it after you first told me about it. I know like this started because there was a high school somewhere in Southern California where they made this a requirement for the graduation. So I know maybe talking to them to see how they did it, but just getting an idea. And then on the newcomer, I know goal 5 was to assign a counselor to monitor the caseload, but also building out on newcomer programs. And we have a fantastic student that's joining the council this year who is a newcomer. This is their 2nd year, I believe. And pretty remarkable student because they have a very good handle on English already. They told me last October is when they migrated to this country. And have already joining the Student Advisory Council. So we spoke really briefly in an interview about like how supported they felt, and they had a lot of positive feedback, but they had some other ideas that they thought would help. So
Fantastic.
love to hear more from them. And then the election for the Student Advisory Council by the student body. So I think we need to I do think this needs to happen. I think we need to communicate a little bit more. We have such an uneven interest rate from the schools. We have tons of kids from Westmore, something that we have to turn them away. And then we have to really struggle to get some from the other schools. But it really depends on how it's communicated by teachers and staff. So I always know which school is really communicating with their students. So I know Westmore is doing a really good job with that. Then in some years at Terra Nova, we can tell they're doing a really, because we have a lot of kids from Terra Nova. So maybe writing in some, how we communicate that out so that it's even across the schools. I think that was, well, I didn't really have any questions. Those are all the comments. And then, the last comment or question that I had was just getting some information on the number of parents and students that we have in total giving feedback on the LCAP. Like, so how many are on the district advisory committee and how many came, like how many people from ELAC came to the meeting, how many people from et cetera, so we could just keep a handle on that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Yeah, just one question related to the school cleanliness. Is checking twice a semester sufficient? I mean, or is this, or how is this, what's the proposed methodology by which we're going to do the checking?
So that's a starting point.
Okay.
And we are in the process of developing a cleanliness improvement plan that we're working with the custodial leads and the district maintenance and operations director. And we'll be fleshing that out and then meeting with site administration before we bring it to you. But that's part of one small step in that larger plan. So the plan will have multiple walkthroughs, but there will be at least 4 per year that are official, where there are certain people that attend and they use a certain checklist.
Okay.
But there will be more frequent informal walkthroughs.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Ojapinti?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Of course, all the work that goes into the LCAP. It's good to hear and see a lot of the fine-tuning of the goals and the applications of those. Just to note 2 things I think were, one of the first things, the remote independent study pathway. My first question, I know we had something along those lines for students this year. Is this where that program is transitioning to be housed at Thornton, or is it something different?
Modification of the current remote independent study. So the law sunsets on June 30th. So there will be a new board policy and administrative regulations coming to you to streamline more of the process for remote independent study. But
Okay.
yes, it is going to be similar.
Okay, thank you for that. So I see the difficulty in hiring and retaining interns, right, in continuity with mental health counselors. I think it's great that we've expanded our attention to wellness and mental health to where we're seeking and taking in interns. With all internships, if it's not paid or if it's just not paid well, it's hard to retain anybody, right? So that said, my first question is, of course, the Daly City Youth Health Center, are they involved with this process, and will they be involved with the hiring moving forward?
So there's different types of interns, and we still do have a lot of interns, but this one is specifically for the ones giving the ERMS services. And so that's the one where we had challenge, because I don't know if you remember, it was Dr. Sally Payson-Hayes who was the clinical supervisor. And so finding the supervisor with the right credentials had been a struggle, and she also helped us recruit the interns at that time.
Right.
And so because of that, it was really challenging to find interns that would provide ERMS for students. But we still have lots and lots of interns. We don't even have rooms at the school sites now. We're trying to, because, Melissa, Miss Ambrose has interns. Daly City Youth Health Center has interns. So lots of interns.
Sounds good. Just encourage the ongoing collaboration, in terms of, because students may access those services on campus, they may go to the health center, and they may have different familiarity, but I think whatever communication and collaboration we can foster is good. That's good. Next one, for the TOSA for the teacher on special assignment for ethnic studies. I'm sure there are more details to this, but just so we can know, Will this be, is this something that's being discussed through current staff, or is this being somebody that we're looking for externally to the district?
It's an internal staff, and Ms. Zia Odin Asra is actually serving the role right now with one section, but we are expanding it because we will be rolling out the curriculum for next year. So we're fully, given a whole FTE to support all of our schools with the implementation.
Thank you. Good to hear that we have our school counselors, I know they already do this, and many of our staff, in terms of monitoring the caseload, working with students who are learning English. Is that an expansion of their duties, or is that something that is shifting some of the things they're already doing?
It is shifting, so there's going to be more focus on, instead of serving everybody, it's going to be more focus on really meeting the needs of our newcomer students. And so we can develop some, PLC and really support like a close knit of staff that can help our students. And so it's just reshuffling their caseloads right now.
Yeah.
And identifying which of the counselors will be the ones to, really look over our students learning English.
Thank you. To that effect, one thing I know is just myself, in my experience working with students who are learning English, one of the things I think is really helpful is to try to learn some of their language. Obviously, we have staff who can translate and interpret. For those of our counselors and any staff who are bilingual and using that service, I think it's something that I'm sure we can consider if it's not already there for all of our staff is, given that we're talking about the budget, paying in terms of, equitable pay. If they're using their bilingual skills, can we compensate them for that? And I think we should, given that it's an extra layer of expertise on top of what they're already doing. And so I think it's great in terms of shifting, our capacity as staff to address all these issues. Something I would encourage our superintendent to consider, and of course, something, if we're looking at it moving into this year, we can see maybe before the beginning of the school year. As a suggestion. I guess two last questions, quick ones. One, the adult school, the bridges program. So how is that working exactly? Any brief detail you want to?
So right now, it's not working yet. The steps that had been done was Dr. Robinson, Ms. Rubin, and Mr. Bashirs had visited San Mateo Union High School because they have a similar program. And so they had done some observations, and what we need to do is start planning on what this would look like. And we will more likely hire a teacher to support the students, and adult school will help us, fund this program as well.
Hold on. Last comment and question would just be as mentioned, the Student Advisory Council elections. It's good to see, I think, in terms of civic engagement and encouraging democracy in our district and, of course, our community. And on election day, to consider these things is the voices of our students in our Student Advisory Council. I think I'm very proud of all of our trustees in our Student Advisory Council here serving at the district level. I think it's a good thing and probably the most appropriate thing for our students at our sites, at our schools, to be able to have a voice directly in who they're representing or who they choose to represent at our board meetings and, of course, communicate with. And so in addition to our board trustees. That said, I guess my only question would be just more like the little details. Is there a teacher or are there teachers assigned to facilitate in this process, like the student body, the student government leadership class teacher, or is it somebody else in mind?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
Fine.
Because I believe in the past it was superintendent of the board that helped facilitate the student advisory council. So.
Okay, thank you. And that's our noise. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I think to answer that, the students themselves and the student advisory committee are coming up with ways. I mean, this is coming from them, so they're coming up with ways to facilitate that process. I don't think it'll be the same at each school because currently the election process is different at each school. So,
sounds good.
Shirley, did you have another?
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. So I think we have to open this up for public hearing. Yes? Public hearing is open. Do we have any comments from the public? Public hearing closed. And now we're on to item 14A2, the 2022-23 budget public hearing.
Thank you, President Tejada. I'm going to ask you to take it out of presentation mode. Yeah. So good evening, everyone. We are here tonight to review the 22-23 proposed budget. We had our work study in April, and not much has changed since then. There has been information coming out from the state from the governor's proposal. He is proposing increasing the LCFF base by not only the statutory cost of living adjustment of 6.56%, but also an additional 3.3%. And he's also proposing contributing to the rainy day fund, investments in the educator pipeline, and some one-time discretionary funds to offset mandated cost debt. That's the real main change that is impacting us. So for our district, that one-time discretionary funds right now is estimated to be about $5 million, one time, 1 year. The other key pieces here, you'll see that the federal funding for 22-23 still includes some anticipated relief funds, but then then there's no more after that. Let's see, and the local funds you'll see are decreasing a little bit in the next coming years as we stop having tenants in this building. So the assumptions that you can see here is I'm hoping that our ADA will stabilize. I think that our attendance rates will improve as our enrollment declines. So that's how I figured out for the coming years that it would be stabilized, because our attendance rates are pretty low right now compared to historical levels. And I anticipate that as we get more and more to normalcy, that our attendance rates will improve again. The property taxes that I have projected are in line with historical factors, as well as what we see on the San Mateo County Assessor's Office roll tracker. So 5.6% for the coming year, and then 4% for the next 2 years. Our historical average over the last 10 years is 6%. But we do have years that are below that. The other changes were an increase in the CPI number for 22-23 that was pretty significant. You can see that the STRS and PERS are taking a big increase this year. I guess you can't see that because I don't have the current year, 21-22 on here, but then they're stabilizing, which will be nice that we won't have these large increases. I think that's about all that is interesting there. One thing I want to point out about salary assumptions is that we are still in negotiations for 22-23. We have not settled. So there's no across-the-board percentage salary increase that is budgeted. However, there is still a large salary increase for 22-23 baked into the agreements we made in the previous year. So we are increasing the hours for our certificated staff from 6 hours per day to 6.5 hours per day, which is a pretty significant increase for most staff. And we are adding 2 days of paid work to the calendar for all employees that work like school days only or our 10-month employees, because we're adding 2 professional development days. So that all increases people's salary. We also have added steps to the BIS and OS salary schedules. So the average for all of our employees is a 4.46% increase. And it varies for each individual employee. But there are salary increases baked in to the agreements from last year. And we are still open for 22-23. Anything else interesting in here? We have, I've budgeted that approximate $5 million of one-time funds. And a chunk of that was eaten up by the increase to the costs of goods and services due to inflation. So our multi-year projection, I'll just go over briefly. You can see, as I said, the LCFF, or the taxes for us, since we're a community-funded district, is increasing steadily. Federal revenue is increased this year because of COVID funds, and then the coming budgeted year is also a little bit inflated due to COVID funds, and then it stabilizes back to what it was before, about 1.6 million per year. Other state funds, again, this year we do still have some COVID money, and next year the $5 million of one-time funds, and then it will go back to what it historically has been. And our local funds, a small, medium, whatever, decrease over the next 2 years to compensate for the loss of rental revenue here. There's a little bit bigger decrease from the current year to the coming year because we got Measure K funds at Daly City Youth Health Center that will not be available moving forward. So that's why the big decrease in the 1 year. For salaries, you see the increase that I spoke about with the structural changes in our salaries. And the reason why it goes down a little bit in the the first projected year is because there are still some COVID funds being used for salaries here. So we're doing extra things that we won't be able to continue once COVID funds are expended. So that's why the small decrease in the 1 year. Same thing with benefits, the reason why it doesn't increase in that 1 year. And you see the large leap because of STRS and PERS taking a large leap between the current year and the budgeted year. Goods and services are a little bit higher in this current year and the budgeted year because of COVID funds. We're spending extra on that. So you'll see that our reserves are healthy, although because of the uncertainty in funding as well as the increase in inflation, we do have a structural deficit. So the budgeted year is pretty much break even, but that's because of the $5 million. And then you see that it's a structural deficit going forward. So we are eating into our reserves as we knew we would when we agreed to the last salary negotiations, with the idea that we will continue to monitor it and make course corrections if we need to as we get closer to the statutory required reserve percentage, which is 3%. So the next steps are that we have the public hearing tonight, and then the budget would be adopted at our next board meeting, June 21st. And then we will get the state budget at the end of June, at which point I'll start making revisions and present the changes to you at first interim in November.
Thank you. I'm gonna open it up to the board if you have any questions or comments. Mr. Lee?
Just one comment. Just again, Ms. Van Rapport, thank you very much for the comprehensive information. You shared all this with us at the work study, and again, the minimal changes between then and now. Everything's pretty straightforward, very clear. Thank you for the explanations, and makes complete sense moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally echo that. It's always surprised me when I talk to other board members and they say they don't get this information. They don't get this information. They don't understand what's in the budget. They don't know how much money has been allocated for COVID relief, et cetera. And then so having both this document and the LCAP they're just fantastic budget documents so that I can understand and speak with real clarity when I talk about our budgeting issues or what we're spending money on in the district. So they're both extremely helpful for me as a board member. And the reason why we don't have questions now is because we went over this before. The May revise isn't extensive for us. You projected all of this, so I feel like we're in a really good place. So thank you.
And you're meeting board members from other school districts? When you
Yes.
say other board members?
Board members, other board members.
Other board members
No, no,
here.
no, not other members.
Other
I mean-
school districts.
I mean, other school
To be
districts
clear.
around the state, yes.
Yeah, just to
Mr.
add.
Ojapinti?
Yeah, as always, thank you for your work on this. I think it's really important. In each of these steps, as we're looking at the budget and of course our LCAP, where our priorities are in our district, to understand that not only are we fiscally solvent and that we're okay today, that moving forward that we have an idea, even if it's a conservative estimate, to make sure that we're even safer in terms of that margin. And even just, in watching the news and watching Governor Newsom and how he's leaned into supporting education since he's become the governor. We've seen a lot in terms of addressing CalPERS and CalSTRS to, of course, the revenue through this pandemic. The surplus that our state has is reassuring. And so hopefully this will continue to create the conversations that we're having around the budget and translate that on the ground into resources and everything that our school districts need. And so thank you for your work on this and looking forward to the next update.
I don't know if I've seen a lot of support from the governor around CalPERS and CalSTRS. I mean, it's been nominal.
It was the first thing he did once he was governor.
Yeah, I know, but that was one time, and it's not been ongoing, and that, just to be clear, like, that payment from us for CalSTRS and CalPERS is every year, so we have to go back and kind of beg every single year for him to do something, and he's not done. It's been hit or miss, so just so that's clear. We still pay a huge portion of CalPERS and CalSTRS. It's still a huge burden on school districts.
I hear your opinion. I remain optimistic, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's not an opinion, that's fact, but yeah, I always remain optimistic, but I just want to know factually, we are paying a huge budget of CalPERS and CalSTRS comes out of our budget.
The entire state at this point.
No,
Is struggling
out of
with that
school
issue.
districts, yeah.
The
yeah.
entire state is struggling with this issue, of course.
Right.
So I remain optimistic he will continue to address it, so
Right.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Great, so I'm going to open this up for public hearing. Public hearing is open. No comments. Public hearing is closed. Now we're on to item, let's see, the public hearing for the 2022-23 reserves in excess of state minimum level.
Thank you, President Tejada. Each school district is required to hold a public hearing if their reserve levels will exceed the minimum, which is 3% for a school district our size. And so this is something that we have to do annually, is just state what our excess reserves are, which has been presented here, and allow the public to provide comment.
Do you have any questions from the board? All right. I'm going to open the public hearing. And no comments. Public hearing is closed. And now for our presentations for the special education program updates. Ms. Baca?
President Tejada, tonight I would like to introduce our directors of special education who will be providing updates on our special education department. And I just want to personally thank them for all the hard work this year, and they are an amazing team.
Let's clap now. Thank you. Give them encouragement.
I'm going to remove my mask just so it's easier to understand. And good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight. We're honored that we will be able to provide some information and updates of what our department is doing. I'm Grace Ventura, and I'm here with my co-director, Lee Metadoff, and we are the directors of special education. Okay. Sorry, I think my first time. Let me try it out. I think there we go. So for this presentation, we will be discussing about our special ed department at a glance. Just real quick, discussing what our program would look like. And also, we would like to inform the board about our compliance and improvement monitoring process, which has been really the meat of what we've been doing. This is the new state monitoring system that we just have had it for this year. And also, we're going to look at data. We love data. What drives us of why we are being monitored by CDE and other agencies. So, we have to look into that to really also dig deeper of what are the root causes that we are trying to improve. And at the end of this presentation, we have our closing just to summarize of what we will discuss and also open up for question and answers. So the department at glance, like said, we're going to talk about programs. We also put some enrollment data here just to see of how our numbers look like this year compared with our projected numbers for next year. And of course, we always have to acknowledge our department staff, because without them, we will not be able to do all these things and to run our department smoother and more efficiently. So these are our programs overview for all our schools. So with this colorful graph here, we'll see that our school site, our high school sites, have all our mild, moderate program in the yellow column. And these are the students who are working in their diploma or diploma track students. At the middle are all our mental health programs. Our therapeutic day school, or famously called TDS, is housed at Terra Nova, and Mental Health Enhanced, MHE, housed at Westmore, and both of these programs also are diploma track for our students. And our extensive support needs, which is on the darker blue side, our life skills and visually structured class. So we have a few programs at Oceana, and we have one life skills class at Terra Nova and visually structured class as well. And for our older students from 18 to 22 years old, we have the adult transition program at Serramonte Del Rey. These are just the quick numbers for our enrollment for this year. And just so everyone know, the daily living is the same as the extensive support needs that we are referring. Okay, so the total is about 417 for this school year. And our projected enrollment for this school year has increased. If we look at the daily living, I just wanted to point out that part of that increase is also the extent because of partly due to the students coming from our county programs who will be transitioning to our district programs in this coming fall. So we went through the IEP process and met with all our families and get their consent, and we have at least about 15 families who will be coming back to our district. Okay, so the numbers would be about 469. And we said projected enrollment because we are still actually doing transition meetings here and there with our feeder school districts, and some our partner districts are still doing their initial IEPs or still connecting with us, especially if they have students still in the private school and non-public school. And our non-public school placements, NPS, for this school year, we have 22 students. And we are happy to report that, with Lee and I going over and observing our students in our non-public school and going through the IEP process, that we were able to bring some of our non-public students. Thus, we have the decrease of our numbers. And we also are able to catch our incoming freshmen. And of course, we don't do this just to save money, but we really, I think that our district has the appropriate services and programs that we provide for these incoming freshmen. And would like to move on to Lee.
Thank you, Grace. So this slide gives you a little bit of an overview of our current staffing. So our department has gone through staffing changes in recent years, and so this kind of just gives you a snapshot of where we are projecting to be next year. And these are approximate numbers, but these should be fairly accurate, except that we do project our paraprofessional allocation will increase as our programs expand. Also very happy to report that we did fill our lead psychologist position. All right, we can move on. Thank you. And then there have been some questions from the board regarding turnover, so we do want to present some information about turnover. So as you may recall, in 2018-19, we did have significant turnover, and actually at one of our sites lost all of our mild to moderate teachers in the same year. I think there was some, really great leadership at the time making a decision to seek teachers from overseas. We contracted with an agency in the Philippines and brought over some very highly qualified and wonderful teachers, several of which are still with the district now. But it kind of highlights the fact that we had significant difficulty finding people locally at the time. In 2019-20, we did have 2 resignations, and then in 2021, we had 5 resignations and 1 retirement. And then 4 resignations and 2 retirements in 21-22 with a turnover rate for certificated staff of 17% this year. And then for classified staff, I think this is where we have a little bit more concern. We currently have 48 paraprofessional positions and have been able to hire 29 district employees, and many of them have been with the district for years and are wonderful, dedicated employees. To try to reach that 48, we've hired 9 agency hires and also have 3 van drivers working with our programs between shifts, and have 7 vacancies as of today. And then we also have classified staff working in our transition services department as job coaches or job developers. We project 1 vacancy going into next year, but currently fully staffed. And then we do anticipate, having more vacancies as our allocation expands. So we do want to take steps to try to fill those positions. I also, just as an aside, want to just commend again the leadership of the district in moving our paraprofessionals from range 29 to range 34 on the salary schedule. And of course, the staff housing. I think all of these factors will contribute to us having more success moving forward. And then also just to note, we have several staff members who are in these positions, which are now district positions. We've contracted in the past for some of these services, but happy to report we've been able to staff some really wonderful people, and echo what Tony said before, that there's a really high caliber of candidates, and we're really happy to report that we see that in the SPED department as well, Special Education Department.
All right, and so this is the main and taking a lot of time, and with the help of Corinne has been really helpful. Without her, I think that we will not be able to comply with all the different timelines. But let's talk a little bit of what is SIM. And of course, we will be adding another acronym in our vocabulary because that's how special ed is. We are all full of acronyms. So if we hear about SIM, that's just the new term for compliance and improvement monitoring timeline, monitoring process. And then we will be also talking about the timelines for this. Okay? So what is SIM? Which we said it's the compliance and improvement monitoring. And this is the new state system for supporting local education agencies, LEAs, that's another acronym, to meet statewide targets for FAPE, free appropriate public education, another one in the least restrictive environmental LRE. I will define more of those 2 important acronyms because it would be the main meat for our SIM process, for our compliance and improvement monitoring. So for our school district, we were identified as intensive level 1 in the California Department of Education, or CDE, Special Education Monitoring cohort for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. And we are required, we don't have a choice, we are required to participate in the SIM process. And so just to define more of the acronyms, Many of us probably have heard about this acronym, Free and Appropriate Public Education. And this just means that it requires school districts to provide this free appropriate public education to each qualified person or student with a disability who is in the school district jurisdiction, regardless of the nature or severity of the student's disability. And then the other important acronym for this presentation is LRE, or the Least Restrictive Environment, which means students who get special education should be in the same classroom as other peers, such as much as possible, and should be attending their home school as well. LRE isn't a place, it's a principle that guides a student's education program. The LRE for each student may look different because each child, each student is unique. Thus, we have developed and write the individualized education plans, or IEPs. So what is the SIM process? So as I've mentioned previously, that we have been identified as intensive level 1 last March 2022 of this year, when we received the annual determination letter. And we are required to participate in all 3 steps of this SIM process. Okay, so first we do the gather and inquire. What is happening? So we're doing data gathering. So Lee is going to discuss more about all that data later on. Then after gathering the data, what is happening? So we're also going to look at the root cause analysis for this, and we're investigating. And then towards the end of this year, we're going to implement this plan of how are we going to improve and what are the activities that comes with this plan. Okay, so with these activities, we will conduct it independently, some with assistance and guidance of our technical assistance provider, which we call our information coordinator, and some under the California Department of Education's close supervision as well. So we have our education program consultant that's at times join us during our meetings. So the goal of this plan, which is on the step 3, is that at the end of this monitoring period, to have a fully developed improvement plans that seeks to implement a high leverage activities that will improve the outcomes for students with disabilities in our district. So the performance areas, so just a quick reminder of what CSAs mean. Of course, another acronym which is really long, it's called Comprehensive Coordinated Early Intervening Services, CSAs. And a good news is that we are out of the SIGDIS, or the significantly disproportionality. So, but towards the end of this, we will still continue to implement and continue of the plans that we have discussed so far from 2020 and 2021. But yes, that's been a good news. So then the next one is the intensive monitoring and support that are in the bottom of 8 to 10. Oh, that's the one. This is at the 8 to 10, there you go, the 8 to 10% of the LEAs for outcomes in the assessment, placement, and student engagement. And our school district was found to be in level 1 based on the least restrictive environment indicators.
I have a question so I can understand this. So, what are they using as the metrics for least restrictive? What are the indicators?
You will be discussing that later.
You're
right?
coming to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm happy to list them now, or
Okay. Are there further in here? Okay.
when we look at the data, we can talk about them, but it's chronic absenteeism.
Got it.
It's, English and math statewide assessments.
I see. Okay.
LRE indicators, 5A and 5B, and discipline data.
Okay. 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 So I got it. I understand now. Thank you. So we are at the highest level,
No,
but the 8 to 10%.
that's the 8th to 10th percentile of LEAs across the state. So
Got
being in the
you.
bottom 4% would be the most intensive.
I see. Okay. I understand now.
Thank you, Lee. Any more questions? So just going through the process, what is required with this with SIM? So as previously said, we have weekly meetings with our improvement facilitator, which who is under the System Improvement Leads Project, or SIL. And we also, like I said, during these weekly meetings, we have that improvement facilitator. We also have our CDE, our education program consultant from CDE, SPED Division. Our SELPA executive director, Mary Young, also joins us in that meeting. We also have our deputy superintendent, Ms. who is also helping us with that, and Lee and I are also part of that. And part of this process is that we have uploaded, we extracted the CalPAD's information and upload it and link it to the new data system, which is BASIC. And would like to give a shout out to our to Ms. Baca for helping us all this, and this has been completed. Then we're going to look at the root cause analysis, which will be discussed later on when we are looking at the data. The next big thing with this would be the parent survey, which our district registered with another website. So when we're looking at all the requirements for this process, they didn't make it easier for us where you can just go to one place. So every process is different. So we're still learning of where to submit in each of the requirements. But for the parent survey, we are registered in Seeds of Partnership website, and the link to the Special Education Monitoring Survey is there. The survey was shared last week with parents of students with disabilities, and it's available in multiple languages in both online and paper form. CDE has given us an extension, and survey can be completed and submitted by June 15th, which is next week. And we are hoping, based on the recommendation, they would like to have a 20% participation rate from our families with students with disabilities. So we're hoping that we still have time to meet that recommendation. So I would like to give a shout out to everyone if they can still do the survey there. We still have time to complete that. We also have our policy and procedures review, which will be used our CDE consultant in completion of this portion of the review. And it was already submitted by our deputy superintendent last May 31st, and we are good with that. The next one is education benefit review. So this is looking at the list. So CDE has given us a list of students that we need to review based on their IEP reports. And we would be able to complete this requirement by June 16 with the help of our SELPA executive director. We are planning to meet by next week, June 16, and the due date is not until June 30th, so we should be able to go for our timeline. We also have our initiative crosswalk. This is just, from what I understand, it's just a design to support a review of the past and current initiatives while considering the existing mandates and resource commitments. And another one that we have to go through to another software is Stepwell. And it's a software which we will be used in this process, the step one, which is the gather and inquire activities for all our monitoring tier. And who knows, they will be adding more after we are done with all of these steps. But these are the ones that we know so far that we have to follow and meet with the required timelines. And these are the timeline that we have to abide or follow based on CDE recommendations. So from now until June, we are gathering and inquiring. So that's when we are meeting with our city consultant, our improvement facilitator, and just looking at all the data that we have and what do we do. That's part of it also is the investigation, which will go until August. And then from August to November, when we are starting the new school year, we hope to have the plan and start to implement what we have gathered so far. And then later on this year and ongoing, that we wanted to improve and make sure that we are looking at the plans that we have. And this is what we have. The other meat of this presentation also is data drive.
Okay. So let's go ahead and go deeper into the data that, the state used to identify us for the intensive monitoring. Do you want me to?
I can help.
Okay, thank you. So this just gives you an idea of the indicators. So these are, there are 14 performance indicators. These are different from the California dashboard. So when we talk about orange and blue, this is a separate data system, but this is just to give you kind of an overview of where JUHSD was in 2018-19. All of these indicators relate to some aspect of IDEA. We can go to the next one. And then you can see not really significant change from 1920. There was some data that was not reported. But as you can see, a consistent theme is that graduation rate and least restrictive environment are consistent among several others. But orange would indicate that we're not meeting target, and blue would indicate we are meeting target. So graduation rate is not one of the indicators of those 6 that I had named earlier, but I think it's worth looking at because it really is sort of like our district report card. And this is not an issue necessarily unique to our district, but the graduation rate for our students with disabilities is not meeting the state target. It has improved in 2021, as you can see, 70.7%. It wasn't part of that graphic, so that's why we've indicated that there. And one other factor to note is that the graduation rate data does include students who receive a certificate of completion as non-graduates, so that does contribute to the data. All right, so we have consistently met our targets except for 2017-18 in terms of the English language arts indicator. And then math, for some reason, the data from the state is sort of lacking in recent years, but we were meeting that indicator as well. And then discipline rate, we've consistently been below the state target, which is a good thing for this indicator. And so you can see here that we've been in the blue since 2013-14. So these last 3 of the 6 aren't the indicators really contributing to the reason why we're in this CIM. Grace already went over what LRE means and mentioned that it's not so much a place but refers to a principle of providing students with maximum appropriate opportunities to be educated along their non-disabled peers. And if you want to Google it later, there's a myriad of different graphics related to LRE that you could find, but the reason I wanted one of these to be in here is just so you can kind of see that it's sort of this continuum. And the further away you get from what's referred to there on this graphic as the regular education classroom, that means you're spending a higher percentage of your time outside of the general education setting. And that's all monitored through the IEP on the educational setting page of the IEP. So least restrictive environment, one of the indicators is indicator 5A. And for this indicator, they're tracking how many students with IEPs spend 80% or more of their day in the general education setting. So for this one, we want to see that those orange dots get closer to that target. We actually want to see those numbers go up. And if you see from 2017, 2018 until now, there has been an upward trend, which is really great. And in 2020-21, we've calculated a 49%, which is very close to the state target of 52%. But of course, we don't just want to meet the state target, we'd like to exceed that target and make sure we're serving students in the least restrictive environment appropriate. And then for indicator 5B, we also did not meet this target in previous years, but for this, the trend line we would like to see is for it to go down. And as you can see here, we've been getting closer and closer to that state target, and in 2020-21, did exceed the state target of 22%. So we'd like to see students spend 40% or less of their time outside of the general education setting. Sometimes with these greater than or equal, greater than or less than, I sometimes get them flipped, but I think it's clear that we want a lower number of students in this range. All right, so this is a graphic that kind of shows you where our concentrations of students are at our comprehensive sites. We don't have the adult transition program or our non-public schools or Thornton on this graphic. For 2020-21, Thornton did have several other programs under it, such as SEEP and independent study, and so the data won't necessarily reflect just what's happening at Thornton. So looking at our 4 comprehensive sites, you can see that for indicator 5A, which is for 80%, or for 52% or more of students to spend 80% or more of their day in the general education setting. Again, we want to see that number of 52% to meet the state target. At Jefferson High School, we're at 68%. At Oceana High School, we're at 54%, and Terra Nova 67%. Westmore High School is at 21%. There's some asterisk next to Oceana and Terra Nova. I wanted to just note that those programs, or those schools, do house our daily living skills programs, and those programs do have core academics outside of the general education setting as sort of a feature of the program, and that's what's determined to be appropriate and necessary for those students to make educational progress, and that does impact the data, whereas at Jefferson and Westmore, we do not have the daily living skills programs. So if you look at the column for 40 to 79% in terms of the educational setting being the general ed setting, that's where the larger concentration of students with IEPs at Westmore is. That's not one of the state indicators, but that's the range in between 5A and 5B. And then as you can see in the 5B column, all of the schools are below that 22%, which is great. And again, this doesn't show our non-public school data, since those schools are all schools that are outside of the comprehensive schools. There's no general education setting there, so that's why the overall data has us closer to that 22%.
So with our closing, just wanted to summarize of what is the future for special ed, or what are we going to do for the next in the fall. So we got this SIM, which is we are determining the root cause related to the least restrictive environment indicator data, and we will create and hopefully implement a plan towards the end of this school year. We also have the CSAs, which we will continue to implement our plans, and this includes the UDL training and other activities. We got the LRE, and then we also have the CPAC, which we wanted to partner with our parents through our Special Education Parent Advisory Council. Actually, just wanted to also mention that we had our first meeting last May 12 of this year for our first CPAC, and we are hoping to invite more parents to be part of this council. We want for our parents and guardians of students with disabilities to help advise the district on decision-making process or the decision-making to support our students who receive special education services. We're hoping that we will share more information to begin meeting regularly in the year 2022-2023 school year. And that's the end of our presentation, and we would like to know if there are any questions.
I'm going to open up to the board if you have any questions or comments. Mr. Chapinti?
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation, and of course, your work on everything. As a teacher in special education myself, working across different settings, whether it's small day classes, STC, or Resource Specialist Program, RSP, or as a co-teacher, I think many of the approaches that we have in our schools are a reflection, not just in terms of where our best practices in professional development are in any given district, but also in terms of the discussions we're having within our special education departments and general education as well. As a co-teacher, I realized that if we're not having these discussions in every classroom or in professional development across every aspect of education, then we're relying on the past, special education, as something that's separate from general education. But we know that's not true because all of our students with an IEP are general education students first, receiving services in special education. So one, just to state that I think it's important to remind ourselves because the work being done in special education is a lot of work that is usually thought of as work that's simply unique to our field. In fact, it's something that requires everybody's input and discussion. So I just want to say thank you for facilitating these conversations and, of course, compliance, right? SIM being the case, I think that looking at the numbers, my observation is that it's kind of lopsided in terms of the way it looks in different schools. So I think the need to investigate it, I guess, this summer and moving into the fall, not only is it timely, but as we're returning to what we're looking at on campuses and in person, I think it's really important to consider all the voices involved. And so my first question is, if this has happened yet, what are students and parents and teachers working in special education saying and asking for with response to some of these indicators or just in general in terms of least restrictive environment?
Well, I think the CPAC is going to be a really important, group to partner with, and we've shared this data with parents at an informational night to try to gather interest to build our CPAC, and I'm looking forward to getting more of their perspective. I could share, anecdotal data on folks' perceptions of LRE. But I think one thing I'd want to highlight is that in the data, you can see the state moves the target a little bit each year. They're looking for incremental progress, steady incremental progress, but not overnight progress. And I think as you've rightly, noted, all students are general education students, right? Some students just also receive special education services. And the gen ed teachers are a required member of the IEP team for that reason, right? And so I think this is a process that takes time, and when we're talking about the least restrictive environment, there's a lot of educational partners involved, including the parents who must consent to the services that we propose as our offer of free and appropriate public education. And so I think there's individualized decisions, and then there's also district, decisions, and I think we're in the process through CIM of looking at what some of the root causes might be, speaking with educational partners to kind of continue to gather data and then develop those 1 to 2 activities that'll be part of the plan.
Good.
And I also just want to add that I think that our leadership in the district has really made good, connecting with all our goals, like in our LCLAP, our CSAs, and our SIMs, so that we are not all over the place. So I've seen some of the initiatives in the LCAP as well as CSAs that are all the same things of what we want to move forward. And I think that's one of the, make it easier for our site leaders as well as our other stakeholders in the district to follow.
Absolutely. I guess my follow-up question to that would be too, is given that we'll have the summer to collect this data and to see, and of course going into the fall, one of the things, and as a recurring theme, I see this in my work and our work, is that there are different approaches to special education in either a comprehensive or alternative education setting. And one of them that always emerges is collaboration. And in terms of collaboration, we have many high school models still modeled after the RSP program, where we have students who are not receiving necessarily a higher level of LRE because they may have a study skills class, or they may have more than 2 classes, or maybe more than 1 class in a special education environment that is not diploma track. Therefore, they may not be, while they be on track for graduation, their LRE is going to be lower. And so I know I've mentioned this before. I think in terms of our conversations, where do you feel we are in terms of discussing where we are at in terms of transitioning and shifting our approaches across the RSP program and co-teaching practices?
Well, do you want me to start? Okay, but I think we both probably have response. So I think different schools are addressing these concerns in different ways. You know, Oceana has had co-teaching for several years, and we're seeing co-teaching developing, interest in co-teaching developing at Jefferson and Terra Nova High School as well.
Yes.
Also, each of those schools is moving towards flex time, which is sort of recognizing that all students could benefit from time in their schedule designated for additional support, which I think is really wonderful. Earlier this year, and Grace can speak to this, we've had teachers attending co-teaching trainings, and that's actually been something that's happened several years back as well. So that is definitely a model we're looking at as a way to get towards, you know, meeting and exceeding these targets, not just for the sake of meeting and exceeding state targets, but because we do want to see our students, you know, in the general education setting to the maximum extent appropriate.
Yeah. And in addition, like the trainings, we also, if there's any requests from our teachers at any sites that they want to observe a co-teaching class or program, that Lee and I are always available there for them to provide that. And we've been also fortunate that our leadership team here has been always gracious to provide sub-teachers if that's needed, and also our site principals who provide that time for us to be able, for their teachers to be able to observe the different co-teaching models or classes at Oceana. So that's also one of the things that we're doing.
Thank you. I think just to add, that's encouraging. I think that's kind of where most schools move into that, through professional development, observation, opportunities to communicate and collaborate. Just to know, I think seeing that the vast majority of our students are RSP students at our comprehensive schools, and Thornton as well, obviously. And I think that if we're having that conversation, we can get a little bit further in terms of not just where teachers can share that space, but also, of course, all of our educators, our paraprofessionals, who are usually the longer standing employees in our special education departments. So in terms of continuity and turnover, I think I would encourage more of those conversations and inclusion in our professional development at each site through this process, but I'm sure that will happen. So thank you.
Other comments or questions?
Just really quickly, thank you for the presentation and the clarification, because I was confused that LRE was an indicator for LRE, so that threw me a little bit in the presentation, but now I understand. And I just really am thankful for you guys for, I kind of feel like laying the foundational work to really stabilize the special education program, because of turnover, both up here and at our sites, it was feeling a little reactionary, and we were kind of plugging holes. So I'm glad to see us kind of getting ahead of things and being more intentional. We're not just doing things because that's the only way we have to do it, or because we're just trying to, you know, stop the bleeding, but just really setting a foundation for the best environment for all of our students, that we're providing education to all of our students, regardless of, you know, the skills that they have when they come here. So that makes me very happy. That it's been a journey, and then we had the COVID, which was a little bit of a setback, but I feel like we're now back on the path. So thank you so much for your work, and I'm excited to see what we do moving forward, especially with CPAC.
I'll get to you in a second. Now, I also want to thank you for this great presentation. It's so comprehensive. And I know that Mr. Ojapinti and Ms. Salahuddin are pretty well versed in special education, but this makes it a lot easier for me to follow and to get an update on what's going on in our district. Although you've always kept us updated, Ms. Bach has always kept us updated. And I just feel, I just want to commend you both for being such a strong, dedicated team. And just how, gosh, the amount of work you must have put into getting students out of the county programs and back to our district, and to reach out to the feeder districts and do all those IEPs to bring students here is just immense. And I do feel what Ms. Salahuddin was saying. I mean, it's my 8th year on the board, and I feel like we have something solid and a real vision and continuity, which is what these students and families need. And I really thank you for that. Thank you very much. And you wanted to make a
Yeah,
comment?
I just actually was going to say pretty much what you just said, President Tejada. This presentation was a wonderful presentation. On a daily basis, we get to see the work of our 2 special ed directors. So it's, they're doing a wonderful job. And the work alone in bringing back our students is immense. And it's not just pulling back students for the sake of pulling back students, you know, because that's not the best idea. But they are thoughtfully working with each of the students and making sure that they're placed correctly and that we're serving them well. And I just want to publicly thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And I do want to reiterate too, like, it's been made twice, but just to say again that this isn't about cost effectiveness. This is about doing what's best for students.
Right.
And I know a lot of times, especially when kids are placed non-public in middle school, there's a lot of LEAs think it's just better to leave them where they're at, because if we disrupt them, that they're thinking that it could possibly cost more money. But I think that, you know, especially in my own experience with my child, being able to go to the school in the city where he lived, being able to be closer to his own siblings and other community members, and us being able to provide the support so that he could do that was huge. You know, it was really life-changing. So, and a lot of parents, especially if you've been in non-public for a long time, you're just unaware of the services that we provide. And if we don't do that outreach like you're doing to let people know, like, we could possibly have your student educated here in our school site. I think that's what I really want to emphasize, that it's really about, a lot of times, you know, non-public school parents don't even know that there is the site, you know, the 8th grade parent nights and stuff, because you're just never told. So I'm really thankful that you are, it's not just about placing them here, but also treating the non-public school parents like they're part of our community, and that they're getting all that information and outreach just like any other student and family would, so.
Thank you all for the kind words. I guess, you know, I think Lee and I really work really well. But I think that part of this motivation and passion that we have is because we have great leaders. And I'm not saying this just because we all just being grateful, but we do really mean it. We always talk like how we are so lucky that we have big bosses, that they are on our phone speed dials, like anything that we need with our budget. Tina is always there, registration and student services. Doreen's there, and Corinne, I think we bug her so much, but you know.
They're all yours, Corinne.
She really helped us, and I know we are coming, you know, with the leadership role, and this is our first year, but I think we really learned a lot from them, and they've been very patient, and I think that that's also one of the, that we are grateful because we are being supported and heard about what our voices are. So it's very privileged to work at Jefferson. So.
I also just want to echo Grace's comments, and then just also thank, you know, for the leadership on staff housing, because recruitment and retention is key to being able to serve students in district. And, you know, we really do, the foundation is the staff that come back year after year and build those programs. And also to the leadership of the district for supporting us in adding positions such as a district BCBA, which, is also key. So very grateful to the staff that also, makes this work possible.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So now we have our program update for nutrition services.
So I have the pleasure tonight to introduce our Director of Food Services, Danielle Sweeters. She's here to provide a program update. Ms. Sweeters started with the district about, actually almost exactly 1 year ago, in May of 2021, just as we were returning from remote learning. I hope you will see tonight that we are headed in a really good direction under her leadership.
And I wanted
She has a
Oh, let's clap. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, wow, look at this.
that our food service wears, and
Oh, wow.
done in fall.
Very cool.
I love that.
I know, aren't they?
I wish I could.
Actually, Austin
Thank you.
was the one who did the logo.
Where do I keep shirt?
How about-
Of course, Austin did.
Austin.
Oh, I got moving.
Thank you, Tina.
Mm-hmm.
And as Tina said, my name's Danielle Sweeters, and I started 1 year ago. And so, presentation. Let's go into the highlights. And here is a Westmore employee, Aura Brown. She's worked with us since 2014. So we like to definitely celebrate long-term employees. And some changes is trying to focus on making fresh food. Something that I really wanted to focus on, fresh produce, salads, and being able to go into the schools and ask the employees who are already been there for a really long time, what would you like? How can I help support you in doing not just a better job, but making your job much easier, and so that you're providing better services to the students in the schools. And so that was really big on the fall, between like fall and Christmas time, winter break is what I was focusing on. And I think,
You want to say who these people are?
oh yeah, I'm sorry. That's Jerry and Ellen, Jerry Regnart, and this is at Oceana. And meals right now, because of COVID, are free to everybody. And so this is an analysis of before COVID, February 2020 and February 2022 for post, and you can see we more than doubled our meal count. So that's really nice. And we wanted to try to definitely increase quality and not just the quantity. And so, well, we did. Offer for serve. So this began years ago. I'm not sure that our district actually offered it, but reimbursable meals, you take your milk and your produce and your protein in your meal. As long as at the high school level you are offering everything, it's still reimbursable. And it is to reduce waste, so that if students, if they're forced to take something, like, oh, you have to take that milk, and they leave the cafeteria and they put it in the garbage, we want to definitely reduce waste. So everything is always offered. Everything is out and ready for all the students. If they choose not to take something, that's okay. Or if they take, double apples or something, please take extra. Take it later for practice.
So I just would like to say that this is something that I didn't realize. Our previous food service directors maybe didn't know about this or didn't do the research, but it's made a big shift in just the atmosphere when students walk into the cafeteria and they're not being told, take it, take this, take that. They're being, encouraged and offered, and it really allows us to provide a lot more variety. And if somebody wants to, I just love that. I've seen kids that will come and take 3 pieces of fruit. And, they're like, are you sure I could take this? In the beginning they were. Now they're like, all right. They're just, and they're eating it. So it's very exciting.
True. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and improve products. So just like Tina said, one of my goals was to have much variety. And besides just the menu items being more reflective of the cultures that we have, also just the produce that we get in, because we are right here in the Bay Area in California. Before it was, you had an apple and an orange, and that was all you're going to get. And now we have strawberries and watermelons and cantaloupe. And as you see, we do salads, Chinese chicken salads and Southwestern salads, and we just want to keep that going. That's a perfect example. And each picture is representative of actually all different schools. And so that is what our goal is, to keep everything fresh, quality, the atmosphere, and the morale. And very nicely, this was my first year, and Tina told me this was the first year that we are at a nice break-even budget, that in the past years that the food service had actually money. That's sad. So, nicely that meals are free, and so we get more in. But if they're free but they're not good, the students aren't going to continue. So I think that we've made a huge effort to make quality and the atmosphere of the cafeteria very welcoming. Challenges, that'll be the next one. That's one of my student workers at Jefferson, and doing pupusas with fresh crude with the cabbage. Supply chain issues were really difficult at the beginning of the year due to COVID. We got over that about winter time, and we just had to be very creative. And staffing, hiring, especially because coming out of COVID was more of a skeleton crew because schools were closed. And so having to hire a lot of people at once and training. But we, did that too. And the mind shift change of let's make it a very welcoming environment, as opposed to you have to take this.
I think another thing in the mind shift is Ms. Sweeters is trying to offer more site autonomy so that it's not the same menu at every school, but allowing flexibility for what the students at one school prefer over other schools, because we do see a big difference, especially between our Daly City and Pacifica schools. They're just used, they've come up through different elementary programs, they're just used to different foods, and so having the site managers have more autonomy on what products they purchase and what meals they serve has been a big mind shift because our managers are not used to, having that kind of freedom.
How is, with that in mind, if there is a problem with the supply chain, how does that affect that autonomy? If you're thinking to make something for the next, not for the following week, and there aren't any ingredients for it?
Well, that's the creativity,
Yeah.
Definitely wanting to have more of fresh produce and local goods implemented, because the supply chain issues were happening at the government level of our huge supplies. And so we opened up an account with Wiedemeyer for the bread, which is a local company, and then getting fresh produce from Daylight Produce, which is close, so that we can actually have things that we can rely on. And then say for goods, say if it was like beef or something that, when it's coming in, to order those and stock those in the freezer, and using more of the fresh bread and the fresh produce to make the meals.
Okay.
Looking ahead. That's Michelle, and that's opening up the snack bar at Terra Nova. But that was a big success. We didn't open it until the spring, but once we opened it, it was very successful. Waste management. So the maintenance department is actually wanting to do more recycling and compost, so we're going to partner with them so we have less waste. And also when we put meals out, to use less plastic and less packaging, and just really try to get away from the waste that we do not need putting into our environment. Tech, which we're going to do a new POS system. Jake, I promise that'll be done by the end of the month.
Great.
Working on that
And snack bars opening, those who did Terra Nova. We have them open actually at 3 of the 4 schools, and then we'll work on getting Jefferson snack bar open, but 3 of the schools are open. And training. Definitely use that for food safety and training the things that, so our staff is well equipped. And also in the fall, I want to put questionnaires and student boxes in the cafeteria so that they can say things that they like or any changes that they would like, so they know that their voices are heard. And always promoting and having student workers, which all schools have student workers, so that's really nice. And signage, trying to, make knowing on the campus, to please come in and get your meals. Any questions?
Oh, there's still more. Oh.
So for our long-term goals for the program is to,
Yeah, we just want to keep increasing the quality in the students, provide all the food, and remain fiscally responsible, of course. That's a perfect example of the fresh food that we order, the fresh bread, the produce, and that it's made daily, fresh in the morning for lunchtime.
that's at Westmore, right?
That is Westmore. That's Bimini at Westmore. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for her? Or no?
Just a comment.
A comment?
Yeah, just comment. I mean, just to look at that one slide with the different food from the different schools, I mean, that's night and day from what we've seen in the past. So thank you so much for all the hard work, and it's just, you can tell that the love's there, and the dedication's there, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate my staff that I have.
Mr. Ochapinti has a question?
Actually,
No?
Oh,
no
sorry.
worries, no worries. No, I know. It is still a school day, I know, in terms of, summer school, the site I'm working at, students are still being served food. So we know that this happens all year long. So I just want to appreciate, the work being done in terms of doubling numbers. We saw during the beginning stages of the pandemic that meal distribution in our district was a central place in our community. And so the discussions that students brought forward prior to the pandemic and changing food services and navigating the ups and downs of that, it's really good to see things stabilize in this sense. And in our transition back to being on campus, that students can feel part of their cafeteria where unmasking and eating can raise anxiety, but it also can bring some joy in terms of normalizing some interaction for our students who are back on campus. So I just want to appreciate the work being done in our cafeterias.
Thank you.
Yes, and of course, getting students involved in our student workers. One of the things I noticed is some of my students and many of our students, I'm sure, are working during the pandemic in food services in our community, whether it's fast food or anything, surely doing things at home, delivery. And so their understanding of nutrition and, of course, the industry that's behind it, the quality of food they're looking for and expecting in our schools should be higher, and they should have a place to have their voice be a part of that process. And so I think that's a highlight for me in terms of just centering student needs and in terms of offering. That's really important. One thing I just want to, I guess a question and maybe a suggestion too is I like that we're moving towards eco-friendly, sustainable ways in terms of providing our food. It's something I'm seeing in other schools, and fresh ingredients being a part of that. Oceana does have an agri-science program in terms of some schools have active school community gardens where they grow things that can be, of course, in turn integrated into the cuisine. And in essence, you can try to grow things that students want to eat that are not only culturally relevant and in demand, but they're just things that are healthy and maybe new ingredients for students. So I guess one of the questions I would have in terms of recycling and composting, I know during the pandemic, student groups weren't able to meet on campuses, obviously, but we do have environmental groups. And Grizzlies Go Green, we had that at Jefferson, of course, at Westmore Environmental Club. All at all campuses, there's some interest in that. Have students expressed bridging that work with what's going on in the cafeteria and in terms of composting, or is that there yet?
I have not heard the students say that, but it's a good discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it in other cities, and I think it's a logical next step in terms of bridging that, teaching health and fitness in terms of PE as well, and of course in the cafeteria, it's a big part of that. Okay, thank you. And the last part, in terms of student workers, how are students getting involved in the program?
Oh, the student workers, they actually come in and they work both the brunch and the lunch, and they can come in, if their grades are good, they can come in 20 minutes or so before and help prepare. And they actually help prepare the meals being served and then work during service.
Right on.
Nice.
Thank you for providing the images too. It's really good to see
Yeah, there's some really, really nice students.
education in action.
And what happens really is while they're actually just coming through, maybe at the beginning of the year, we just say, would you like to work here? And I just say, give me your email, and I email them, and then they apply, and you approve on the board, and they start.
So you were recruiting my son the other day.
I really was. I really
Do I really
was.
have to work? Yeah, it's a good idea.
Thank you for reaching out in your work.
Yes, Ms. Saladin?
First of all, your name's perfect for the job.
Thank you.
Secondly, question about portion size. I know we've had issues, or students have talked to us about the portion size being too small. What have you done about portion sizing?
I do think they were small before.
Okay.
I agree. I
Okay.
agree with them.
And have we've increased them?
Yes.
Okay. And then with it being like reimbursable, if a student wants more food, can they get more food, or are they only allowed to just get one meal?
The free reimbursable meal they get, and then if they want more food, they can pay for it. But they don't have to pay the full reimbursable, they can just buy whatever component they want.
Individual.
So say for $2, they can buy another burger.
Okay.
And they can get as much produce and
Yep.
milk and other, like the side type things as they want.
Sides, exactly. So
Okay,
say they
for
are
free.
hungry, say, hey, take extra carrots, take extra apple, take some extra milk. Here, take a string cheese for later if you're hungry, free of charge.
Question on menus. So are the menus someplace where we could, like, somebody can view them online, or is it,
They're online.
okay,
We also run them once a month in Superintendent Presto's updates to the community.
okay.
I would say, though, that's something that we can improve upon because we only have the one menu item
Okay.
that's standard across the district.
Oh, okay.
So it looks like we're only serving one thing per
thing.
day.
I see. I
And
see.
then what's the variety at each site gets just publicized inside the cafeteria.
Okay. Okay. And are there plans for, what does the grab and go look like right now? Is there a, multiple or an option for grab and go every single time, or is it more prepared food?
There are meals that are ready. If you
Okay.
need grab and go, the students still have to input their student ID number so it can be recorded.
Mm-hmm.
But there's meals like the sandwiches and the salads, those are ready.
Yeah, so they can just get.
Exactly. They just get in line, they can take it, but they just have to be able to put their number in.
Okay, and are those like sandwiches and salads that are prepared like that, or is that also sold in the snack window? Or is snack window just more small?
Depends on the school,
Okay,
yes, and the Terra Nova and Jefferson. For next year, we're gonna try to do that.
okay.
Right now, their snack burgers are pretty much snacks.
And then, so what are the plans for, I know we had in here other ways that we can increase service, like looking into other ways. Do we have any idea now? Or are we still working on how we can, because I've been there volunteering at lunchtime, and then it's just like a flood, right? Because they're all trying to rush to get their lunch.
Actually, all the schools, the lines actually, there is no more wait. There's
No more
about
wait?
10,
Okay.
15 minutes where, like, there's no more line.
Okay,
But
It actually had to go quickly.
But if we were to continue to increase service, which I think we should, the issue is, I think I've mentioned before, is that you have, especially in the Daly City schools, you have 1,200 kids trying to eat in one lunch period.
Right.
And so we would need an army of people to try and serve all of those kids. And so they do kind of self-select, and I think we've reached how long they're willing to wait in line, and so that many kids is how many we're serving, right?
right.
And so, yeah, some of the things we have planned is we're going to go look at other programs to see what it is that they're doing to try and get more kids served. The other thing we talked about, but I don't know if it's getting anywhere, is vending machines that serve a fully reimbursable meal. Like we would put the meals in there every day and they could maybe punch in their code. And
take them
so
out.
that's kind of a pie in the sky. I've heard of it, but we haven't been able to actually put our fingers on where those exist.
I see.
And then just this POS service is going to be quicker, as well as, that we're just constantly trying to streamline things. But, ultimately, if we had more than one lunch period, that would be the way to really increase
Okay.
the amount of kids who have access to the meals.
Okay. And then is brunch also prepared in the same way that lunch is, or is brunch more? Okay. Okay. That is all the questions that I have.
Yeah,
And then I
because-
know we are planning to come back. I'm sorry. I didn't
go
mean to cut
ahead.
you off. I know we're planning to do this presentation one more time when the students are here, probably after a few months, so they can get more feedback. So, if we have some more of the answers on this, it would be great to get some of those too. Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're on to our action items. We'll start with human resources. And that is the application for variable term waiver for Lee Medvedoff.
All right. Good evening, President Tejada, members of the board. Tonight, I bring to you a variable term waiver for Lee Medvedoff. The variable term waiver for Lee provides a temporary extension of the waiver for the administrative services credential requirement. Lee is currently enrolled in a preliminary administrative services credential program that started in the middle of the 21-22 school year. Lee is on track to complete his program on time in early 2023. This waiver provides coverage for Lee while he completes his administrative service credential program. We would recommend that this waiver be approved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. That was, I was just going to interrupt you while you were talking. Okay, and so now I'm going to, that was so what was pulled from consent was item 12D3 under business services. And that was the Westmore change orders. 12D3, where are you? So, Mr. Ochapin, I just want to remind the board that, per our governance handbook, if you want to pull an item out of consent, please let me or Ms. Preston know ahead of time. And then maybe we can get your answers, your questions answered ahead of time. So, Mr. Ochapinti, you had a question on the change orders for Westmore?
Of course, that's why I pulled the item. So first, these are a lot of change orders. I understand the change orders come in batches. This is, for the public who may not be seeing the document, about 159 pages of contracts. And so in looking through them, I remember last time my question regarding change orders at Westmore, it was about $100,000 in change orders. This one is less. But one of the needs at the school was to revisit some of the hallways for safety reasons in terms of monitoring. There's a door in the theater, in our brand new theater, that wasn't working the way it was supposed to in terms of access. And so that said, I see that it is on here, which is good to see. Is my first question would be, in regards to the contract, how it's written up is a little contradictory. In one part, on page 64, it says that the total cost is just door frame and hardware for $5,547.19, assuming doors cost and labor in the neighborhood of $5,000. That would make sense, but in the description in page 63, it says, new door and frame for opening T217D, opening T323C can flip-flop and does not require new door and frame, can use hardware. So based off what I knew about this door, and I'm assuming this is the same one, It sounds like we have the hardware, but we're just paying for the labor, which is fine. It's hard work and very important work for our students. But later on, it tells us that this is for hardware and labor. If you go down to page 67, it says material. And it's between that and labor, it's divided about over 2,000 each. So my first question would be, why does it say on one that we didn't need hardware, and on the other one it says we did?
So another reason why it's helpful to have these questions ahead of time, because that is something that might take some research. I know that the change orders have been reviewed not only by Swinnerton, our management company, but also by our director, Ms. Phillips. And so she is glancing over it again now to see if she can find what you're referring to. I would remind also that this project was over $80 million, and the change orders that are on the table today are about $63,000.
Right, and these are the ones, I will remind everyone that these are the final change orders for Westmore.
Right.
Does that mean that the work has already been done?
Yes.
Has it been agreed to between the contractor, the subcontractor, Swinnerton, and the school district?
Yes.
Then I don't understand why this is a problem this evening.
This evening,
just
it's
a
on our agenda
question.
to be voted on, to be approved or disapproved. Trustee Lee, that is why we're discussing it. It's a contract that is not yet approved. That's why.
It's not a contract.
The work has already been done.
It's a change order, yes.
Nick, it's a change order, it's not a contract.
Director Phillips, I'm asking a question. It has not been answered. Can you please tell me why there's a discrepancy in this order?
I'm not positive that there is a discrepancy. I would like to point out that we would need to do the research.
Page 68, if you could pull it up, my request,
Mr.
can you pull it up as a
Ojapinti,
screen
can we
share?
lower our voice, please? And then also, I'd like to say that this is exactly why we need to pull, if you had a question about an item, that you bring it by noon on Mondays, which is in our governance handbook, and which is what we all agreed to.
That's a courtesy, I understand.
Not a
This is-
courtesy, it
this
is more than just a courtesy, it's out of respect
By
for our
law, we are
staff.
required to be prepared for these meetings, Trustee Tahada. And if
Yes.
you have any questions, I'll encourage you to ask them as well. This is our job for oversight.
Listen.
I will continue to do my job,
But I have to
Thank
abide
you.
by the governance handbook that we have all signed.
which has been violated by you and several trustees several times.
That's
I will
not what we're
remind you.
talking about right now, and I.
It is not, but
Okay,
I'm asking
so
you a question.
just a
So
second,
could
just
you
a
please
second,
let
just a
Director
second.
Phillips answer the
Just
question?
a second. So when she is ready to answer it,
Sure. I have a request.
time?
I have a request. Can we bring up page 68 on screen share for our public watching the meeting to see what I'm referring to? It does not require a lot of research. I can walk us through it. It's pretty easy to see where the discrepancy is. I would like to simply have a simple answer to that, and I'm sure that Director Phillips can explain it. Thank you.
You said you names page 65 and 68, or just 68?
Yeah, I don't know what number it
It's a
is. Why don't you tell us the document?
The document is,
It's the
Listed
PCO
as-
826.
it's on pages 63 through 60, 69, 68,
For new frames and hardware,
yes.
okay? So what's the problem?
So on page 63, it is listed in the description that per CC, in description in the box, this first box, or the first major box in the middle of the page, it says per CCD 195, new door and frame for opening, T217D. Opening T323C can be flip-flop and does not require new door and frame, can use hardware. It goes on to just list some other details. It's on page 63 of the PDF. Not sure what page you might have in front of you, but the next page, 64, is the change order. The cost is listed in the first box, over $5,000, $5,547.19. As noted, this is part of a prior contract. There's a change order to it. It goes on to page 66 in the next part of the change order. Material says, non-applicable. The next page, actually, that part is different because it's other than the contractor. On page 67.
Wait, I'm completely
page
lost.
67.
Hold on. Because I'm trying to understand what, we're looking at, so you're looking.
I'm reading the contract, the change
I
order.
understand you're reading it, but I'm confused on where you are and what you're reading.
So on page 63, we began there. And on page 63, you can see the PCO review cover sheet.
Nick, may I ask a question? Because I think I can clarify. I think that you're saying that in the one page, it said that no new hardware was required.
Correct.
That it, and then when you go to the page, there was in fact a material cost for $2,238. Is that your question? So,
My first question, yes.
okay, so labor and materials equals the 5,000. And so you're saying that it seems to you that we should not have paid that 2238. Is that correct?
That's what it's telling me, that's what it's telling us, right?
Is that what but that's your point, right?
I'm just trying to read.
$2,238 should not have been paid
Right.
because we had the hardware.
Right, I'm reading, and I mean, I did pay attention to this change order because it is important. It's something that was requested on site and something that was brought to my attention. Something that I noticed as well, as a teacher, you have to make sure that our buildings are safe and everything our teachers and our students need, and all of our staff, so.
But that's the discrepancy, correct? That you're stating, the $2,238.
Correct.
Okay.
On page 67, if that's on page 63, that is the first, those two lines in that first description box is what I'm referring to, what Superintendent Preston, which you just referred to. If you scan down to page 67, under work performed by contractor, it's listed as two different things. And so I guess my first question is why the discrepancy?
Did you find it?
I have this document, this document, this document. It doesn't say
But
page 67.
if you go to Mitten Door Company,
It's actually up on the screen.
I know.
Nick,
You know what?
if you go to where it says Mitten Door Company, which has the materials laid out for you, it says
Part of the material
it
and
was the
labor.
door and the frame, and it says reuse all hardware. So we were charged for the door and the frame. Reuse all hardware. It says right in there that they did reuse the hardware.
So why would the change order include new material?
Because
The hardware is just the
The door in the frame isn't the hardware.
right. The door and the frame isn't the hardware. The hardware is like the doorknob and
It's the hinges.
Hinges.
It's the lock. That's the hardware. The panic bars. That's the hardware.
Were those not already part of the door prior? I do remember there being a bar, but it was simply on the opposite
No,
side.
they reused the hardware. They had to replace the door and the frame.
Right. I'm just seeing the change order is asking for 5,000 and it's listing materials is about half of that.
Combination of material and labor.
And the materials are outlined on the Mitten Door Company backup that is on page 68.
So it looks like we're being double charged for the material because the material was already in the building.
No.
You're saying
They're
that they brought in
telling
new
you
material?
we're not being double charged.
There's $2,238.25 of material included in this change order.
Because there was a new door and new frame necessary. That's
They-
what it says here. New door and new frame.
Which points out my discrepancy that I found is that there in the first, on page 63, it says, can use hardware.
Yeah.
Like, does not require new door and frame. So if it does
A door
not,
and frame is different than hardware.
what hardware are we referring to other than a door and a frame?
They just explained it.
Panic bar, doorknob.
So they're saying that
Hinges.
they didn't need to reuse that stuff. They had to get the new stuff is the door and the frame.
No, new door and frames is not required. That's what it says. You're saying the panic bar costs $2,000.
Sorry?
No,
Is that,
it's not at
am I correct? Is that what I'm being told? Is
So
that,
the door, the panic bar didn't cost, the panic bar was reused, it sounds like,
It's the
right? That's
door
the
and the
hardware.
frame.
It's the door and the frame that were purchased.
what it says here on page 63, and I hear you, that it says does not require new door and frame. Explicitly, this is what the change order tells us.
Okay.
So-
It did require a new door and frame.
So, okay, thank you for that clarification.
Does not
Why
say
is it listed this way in their original change order, cover sheet?
I think what is opening T323C? So that's how I read it, that it says new door and frame for opening T217D. That is one area. Then another area, 2323C, can flip-flop and doesn't require new door and frame. So One place does require a new frame, new door and frame, the other one doesn't. It's two different areas.
So is there a diagram, my next question is this,
There were
because
two
this is,
doors that were replaced.
Right, and that's how I read it, that there were two different areas, and they were describing what was needed in each area.
so you're saying that one of the doors was not usable and was tossed out? There was
No, we were
No.
given the door.
we were given the door, a new door, the one that trustee Saladin was
We were
implying to?
given the door, we didn't toss out a door. We gave Pete the door, our locksmith,
Okay,
so that he can use it maybe somewhere else.
okay, so one of the doors was not reusable is what you're saying?
Not for this project.
That's what it
Not
says
this-
here in the
this
contract.
situation.
The contract actually says.
Or in the change order.
Does not require a new door. But I'm asking because I only see one, is the diagram on page 62 referring to this door or no? Because I was trying to visualize what this is talking about, and it was kind of hard to understand based off this.
Right.
What material was being bought, because there's discrepancy in the change order material.
So I moved to call the question because, again, this is why in our guidance, in our board guidance that we all signed and agreed to, that these type of discussions need to take place before the meeting. If you want to.
Not always, no.
Yes,
Yes.
always. Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
So just so I can finish my point, in our handbook, which you signed, it absolutely says that if you're gonna pull an item off of the consent agenda, that you need to give an alert and send the questions in advance so that the answers could be provided for you in the meeting. I understand asking questions that you want the answers to in a public meeting. I do that all the time, and I will let the district office staff know, hey, guys, these are the questions I'm gonna ask, and I'm gonna re-ask them in a public meeting so that the public can hear the answers, but I don't walk into a meeting with this level of question and not give the staff heads up. We all agree to do that in our board book. So if we don't do the pre-work, then we can't expect them to do the work on the other hand. That is our job as a board.
Our job as a board is actually to prepare for these meetings and not
Right,
have to.
and so
and not to-
preparing for the
excuse
meetings
me,
is to
and
send the questions in
excuse
advance
me,
per our
excuse
board
me,
guidelines.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
And not show up to a meeting unprepared to ask questions in real time. Our director of
No one is
facilities-
showing up to the meeting
Excuse me,
unprepared to ask
excuse me,
questions, Nick.
excuse me,
What we're saying is we
excuse me,
want you to
excuse
come
me,
to the
please do not
meetings
interrupt. President
doing
Sahada,
the
can you
pre-work
please
that
create
we
some order
all
in this?
agreed to do in our book. We all agreed to do the pre-work. So if you're not gonna do the pre-work, then this is why we have this problem.
I have
right
done the
now.
work. I am the only person
No,
with
you
questions
did not.
here.
You did not
I
send
am
the
the only
pre-work.
person who's asked questions at
Hi,
this meeting.
I'm going to get everybody's
Only person
attention
that's
here.
asked questions.
Currently asking
Hello?
questions on this item.
Okay.
That's
I'm-
fine.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, board members, I want to get our attention back to
Yes.
the matter at hand.
Yes, please.
I also am going to reiterate that we all signed the board
Yeah.
governance handbook, and this is why I asked that we all be distributed our signed handbook the last time we were here, because we need to read it and adhere to it, so that you're saying you're doing the work, you're asking the questions. It would be much more helpful, and it would make the meetings go much more smoothly and quickly if we ask the questions ahead of time, respect our staff's time, asking them ahead of time to answer these questions that you have over this $5,000 change order. So, and then Ms. Van Rapworth has a question.
Well, no, I would just like to state, I do believe the question has been answered.
Yes.
That we have clarified that there were two areas, one where the door and frame could be reused and one where the door and frame could not be reused. And that door and frame that could not be reused has been kept for some other purpose. Hopefully we can use it down the road, but it was not usable in this circumstance.
Okay, so thank you for the clarification.
So move to
No,
call the
no, no, no,
question.
excuse me. Please don't interrupt me because as a point of
Okay,
order.
I'm just going to
point
let
of
you.
order. Please,
I'm going to let you
continually
speak right.
interrupted. Yes.
Listen to me.
Yes.
I'm letting you speak right now, but we've really got to move on with this. So what is your comment?
My comment and follow-up question is this. One, change orders as part of contracts are extremely important and require the preparation of every single board member, and I trust the professionalism of our staff, which is why I ask these questions, because I know they understand what's going on the ground. Secondly, my follow-up question is this, and it has not been answered. Is this diagram referring to the doors? Because I was trying to see whether or not this was referring to that or something else entirely.
So I still have my motion. Wait,
Excuse me, please
Okay,
please, I asked the
hold
question.
on, hold on.
That
Okay.
diagram has nothing to do with the doors.
Okay, that's been answered.
So here's my second question.
So no, I
that's
feel like
been
the
answered.
motion needs to be addressed. I moved to call the
Okay.
question, so could we get a vote on that?
That's been answered.
No.
I would like to move on.
This diagram is listed twice in our presentation,
It's a
so,
mistake,
yes,
Nick, it's a mistake.
that's a point
I
of
apologize.
clarification. That's fine, thank you for that. That's, you read my
Sorry if it was
question.
confusing.
That's okay. I understand,
Okay.
this is why I asked the question.
We've got to move on. So I think the answers have been, questions have been answered. We have now a motion on the floor to approve.
Yes, I would appreciate next time if you let
Okay.
me do my job and ask questions
You
before
know-
cutting me off. Thank you.
you
That's all.
know,
That is all. That is
Read
all.
the governance handbook, please.
Please do the same.
So
Thank you.
So I
I
didn't
have.
move,
There's
so
a
then,
motion to approve.
no, that wasn't a motion to approve. There was a
Okay.
motion to call the question, but I will now
Okay.
move to approve.
Second.
We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Business Services, approval of Resolution 2021-22/20 Education Protection Account.
Thank you, President Tejada. Every year, we are asked to approve a resolution outlining what we are using the educational protection funding for, and every year we use it for salaries. So I recommend the
Move to approve
approval of this
resolution
resolution.
21-22/20. for the-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item B, what is that?
15B2.
15B2, budgetary increases and transfers at year-end resolution number 2021-22/21.
Thank you. So this is another annual resolution, which allows the county superintendent to offset any over expenditures in our accounts at the end of the fiscal year.
To approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's see, and now we have the public hearing and resolution for fiscal year 2022-23 for the JUHSD Maintenance Assessment District.
Thank you, President Tejada. So this is the third and final step in our annual process of maintaining our maintenance assessment district funds. This is allows us to levy the continued assessments. Every year, it generates about $360,000 for our district.
I'll open the public hearing. No public comments. Public hearing is closed. We have a motion.
Move to approve the resolution for the Maintenance Assessment District.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And now for the resolution 2021-22/24, supporting the award of leaseback agreements.
We've had some people waiting very patiently all evening.
Thank you.
For this
Thank you.
item. But tonight I have the pleasure to recommend that the board approve a resolution allowing us to contract with Landmark Construction. As authorized by the board back in February, we conducted a rigorous selection process to identify the best contractor to construct our new adult school and district offices. We received 3 proposals from highly qualified bidders. Landmark rose to the top of this process. So I am now going to turn it over to Director Phillips to see if she will introduce our guests from Landmark as well as provide any additional information about the selection process.
Good evening. We held our RFP. All of a sudden, I'm just, sorry. Feeling a little tired tonight. We held our RFP, and it was due back, sorry. I apologize.
It's 9:45.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Well,
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's okay, Steph.
Due back in the, I think it was like May 13th. Sorry, it took me a minute. We went through the interview process on the week of the, what was it, the 26th of, it was the 26th of May, sorry, I'm going by recollect here. And through that interview process, we came to the conclusion that Landmark Construction was best value contractor. They're here tonight because I wanted to introduce them to you and also request that you, or recommend that we move forward with awarding them the contract.
You want to mention that they've been that they've worked
They
with
have-
some local
so,
school
yeah, I
districts
did-
that
well, I
spoke
put that
very
in my
highly.
recap,
Yeah.
Yes,
so
in the
I-
recap,
sorry,
but you
I-
can.
Yeah. So we have a weekly recap that I write to the board, and they've worked on Brisbane and Bay Shore schools, and they're also currently working on Palisada? Or Panorama, sorry. Yeah.
Great, great.
So they have local experience and lots of lease-back K-12 experience, and they're very excited to work with us.
Great.
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, I'm like, this is not me.
We're tired.
It's all right.
It's okay. Kevin Brennan, who is president of Landmark, and Ellen, who is the pre-construction
fantastic.
director for Landmark, are here tonight. And if you have any questions?
Welcome.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, everybody, yeah. President Tahada and
Thank you.
the trustees, we're really excited for the opportunity and look forward to a strong working relationship with the district.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Lee.
So I had the good fortune to be part of the interview team a couple weeks ago. And there were just a few things I do want to say. First off, I mean, this discussion, whether to approve this contract, I think this is a really good thing we're about to do here. Looking at the qualifications of Landmark very specifically, not just the local experience, but also the familiarity with working with the city of Daly City, which is also going to be a very key bit of experience as well. Notable too, I think, was the project team is coming over from one project to another, and looks like the team's been together for a couple of years, which really bodes well for us because it's the familiarity of the team working together, which I appreciate. The fact that what came out in the interviews from the team, that they've already been doing some of this work in advance. Looking at the supply chain issues with materials, with solar panels, with other items that could potentially be issues for us and could delay the project, the fact that they've already been doing that homework. The idea of being an integrated whole team approach, especially with the subcontractors. We just had a lengthy discussion about change orders, and that the fact that the lease-back delivery method will minimize the amount of change orders because of the value that the subs will bring as part of the process early on. And I really appreciated hearing the types of firms that you're working with and the relationships you have in the subcontractor community so that you can ensure that we're getting the best value for the work that's going to be done. And the other thing too, I think that jumped out was the fact that we are going after LEED certification for the two buildings. The fact that these will be, potentially our very first LEED buildings in the district, sustainability and green, and that you have team members that are LEED certified is a really big plus in my book as well. So all this is to say that I am very excited about working with you on this.
To the mic.
You had a question, Mr. Ochapinti?
Question, or just a comment.
So just real quick, you might want to have them move to the mic, because I don't know.
Is it for,
Go
who's
ahead.
it for?
You've got a comment?
So in a prior meeting, we discussed many of these issues, including lease-back agreements. Some of the questions I asked then, my concerns, I still hold. In terms of lease-back agreements allowing school districts to avoid competitive bidding, even if it's framed in the sense of best value. I believe that they're not a right fit for school districts, and they're not a right fit for public entities in terms of avoiding fair business practices and fair labor practices. With no comment on terms of the quality of the work being provided, I believe the process by which the school district is going about this is not only wrong, it's unethical. On top of that, this project is being fast-tracked. As you may or may not be aware of, the environmental impact report around this Serramonte Del Rey district office has not been fully approved yet in the phase that's being discussed that would predicate any building of a new district office at Westmore Park. In addition, pesticides were found at Westmore Park, and there's currently a study to investigate the source of those contaminants and so forth. And so with regards to this, thank you for being here, and of course, the work you put on things. Though the board, as a majority, have voted for this, I have not. And out of respect for you and your time and labor, obviously, I appreciate you being here. But I cannot approve this in good conscience. So that said, I look forward to a new district office and look forward to it being built here at Serramonte Del Rey, where it was originally intended. And so in addition to a community center and many things that our community is asking for in the course of this project. So just to let you know where I stand, and obviously the public, that this deal is not a done deal. It's not a closed deal, and there are still steps to be taken. So I believe this is not only preemptive, but not the right choice for our community and our school district. That said, thank you.
We have a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
We get a roll call vote, please.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Looking forward to it. And now we have Resolution 2021-22/23, increasing school facilities fees as authorized by Government Code Section 65995B3.
Thank you again. This is my last resolution for the night. This is a proposal to increase our school facilities fees as authorized by Government Code Section 65995B. Attached to this proposal is, or to this item, is the final developer fee study that was conducted by Jack Schrader and Associates that justifies the fee increase to what was approved in the most recent board action.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Okay. Did you note that, Ms. Johnson? Okay. Consideration of future agenda items. So we had scheduled our superintendent evaluation on June 11th, but Mr. Lee will not be present. And so I'd like to find an alternate date at this time so that we have as many board members available to work on that. So Mr. Lee, you're going to be out of town.
I'll be out of town this weekend. I'm out of town the following weekend as well.
And so,
But I am back on on June 25th, if we want to do it in June on a Saturday.
does June 25th work for everyone else?
I will be gone.
Oh, you'll be, oh, that's
Yeah.
right,
That's
you're
right,
out.
gone.
Okay, that's not going to work. So you're gone through July 2nd, and then I even put in my calendar. Okay.
You.
So we'll look at July 9th if people are around.
That works for me.
What date was it again?
July 9.
July 9, are we gonna, so if we wait till that, are we gonna set a day, are we gonna do review and goals all in one meeting?
We should, so we don't.
So this is when you guys are
This
getting
is,
together
this
to
is
do the
actually when
review.
we go
Yeah.
get together and,
Yeah, so I'm
Go
saying,
over.
so then we have to do and set another meeting to do the
meet
review.
with her,
And
yeah.
then we have to, and we're gonna do review and goals all before the start of school.
Why don't we just break up these in terms of our meetings and have them the same day as our regular board meetings, given that there's usually less on the agenda during summer meetings?
because it takes a lot of time. And
We can break them up into
it's easier
multiple-
to, let's see.
If we break them up into multiple meetings, it would take less time, or it would be easier to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why we had set June 11th, so that we would have enough
Have a lot
time.
of time.
I mean, these are dates in the summer where if we're having regular board meetings, we can also discuss these issues during the summer. So,
After the board meeting, so we're gonna do it like at 8 or 9 o'clock?
yeah, I mean, this is a longer board meeting, it's almost 10. But I mean,
I
if,
prefer not to because I like to get home to my children at a decent time.
Yeah.
So that's my request.
well, I guess the other option is people should be free on weekends this summer. But how many hours do we expect it to take?
I think at this point, it's going to take a few hours on, say we do it July 9th, that's when we get together and discuss evaluation and goals, right? Because she'll have them to us by then, her self-evaluation.
Probably at least a 3-hour meeting, I would think.
At least.
Probably at least 9 to 12.
9 to 12, at least 9 to 12.
Okay, all right.
Let's at least start with that, and if we need to plan another meeting after that,
I
we'll,
think we should plan them all out now. We should pick the
Yeah.
dates now because that's,
Yeah, because then I'm going to be gone the following weekend. So
then should we go to the 9th and the 23rd?
I will not be available on the 23rd. Or the 30th. Superintendent Presta, are there days that work best for you?
I'm not in attendance.
not attending it.
well, you will be at the ones after July 9th.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
second,
so-
the second one, yeah.
Because we could probably do that
How about August
in a
6th?
closed section.
That's true, we could do that too.
Yeah, good.
Do we want to try then for a closed session on July 19th, or is that when you're gone?
I'm not. So, so
July 19th.
Yeah, July 19th?
I'm back on July 19th.
Okay.
gone.
You're gone,
Good.
okay, Rosie, you're gone, okay. How
So
about
let's
Sat-
start with July 9th. Okay, 9 to 12, right?
Yep.
9 to 12.
Okay. All right. So how are we gonna find the next date? Are we sending out, we could just poll the board to figure out the next date?
Yeah, I think we should do that.
Okay.
Let's just do that,
I'll do that.
okay,
Chelsea's on vacation starting tomorrow, so
okay.
won't ask you for about a week.
Okay, no problem.
Okay,
So let's do that.
all right.
And then,
Okay, so you're on the 9th from 9 to 12 for them to do the work. And then we'll schedule the follow-up with me.
And we'll
She'll-
find
She
another-
will schedule that in about a week. She'll pull you.
okay.
Okay?
And then, did you have something for future agenda items? Or you wanted to bring up? Mm-hmm, no?
If I did, it's not in my mind now.
Okay. Oh, no. No, we actually, we already
We
discussed it.
scheduled.
A special board meeting.
Yeah, special
That's
board
what it
meeting
was.
on the 28th at 8
Okay,
a.m.
yes.
to approve a new our principal hire and a VP at that
Yeah,
time.
okay.
That's
That's what
if-
it was.
If they can
If-
make it, so we
yeah.
haven't checked with them
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
Okay,
So we'll
great.
be in touch.
Okay. So, start scheduling things.
Okay.
All right, if there's nothing else, I'd like to get a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 9:56.
Okay, I'd like.